Greetings to you, my nerdy, beautiful people. It is I, Rachel. Hello, hello. I am on my third part of the Champa / Beerus cosplay, or for whatever god you would like to do from Dragon Ball Super. I hope this cosplay tutorial will help, as I'm going step by step through the process of making the cosplay, including the costume, the accessories, and the head. So I hope whatever regards to Super cosplay you're doing, it helps. So in this tutorial, I am going to be showing you how to make the accessories. And when I mean accessories, I mean the wristbands, which are these, and the armbands. And with these, some of the gods wear neckbands, so I made one for Beerus. I have to fix mine, unfortunately, because the sweat disintegrated the glue, so I have to repair it, and it's like this. So basically you can make these a bit like these, but just this one's slightly bigger, and just by adding some extra card. But if you need me to show you, or if you need to know, I can just put in the comments below. So we're going to make the wristbands first, so we're going to need a few materials. So you will need some poster tubing, which you can probably find in craft stores, stationery stores, or if you work in retail, anywhere that has posters coming in, you could probably ask to have some of these. So that's what I did, because I work in a warehouse and I work in retail. Tool wise, you will need various size scissors, so always handy to have. A chopstick, because it's easy to apply glue to smaller parts with these. I apply large amounts of glue with a hair dye brush, as the bristles are easily washable and reusable, so very handy to have. You also need a Dremel. If I'm making these a little bit bigger because these are for my partner to wear, so I need these to smooth it down. You also need a really good tough stapler, because obviously for stapling through cardboard, it's good to have a really good strong stationary stapler. Also, I'll be using the clips again, because while gluing, it's easy to have some clips to hold the foam down. Some sandpaper. This is some fine grit sandpaper. And you'll also need craft foam, a Sharpie or a marker or a pen. And to make the detailing, I use these foam hair rollers. I got these for £1 in Primark. They also do various sizes as well, so they're very good to have if you're doing like anything armor wise with a curved detail on it. This gives a really nice edge, but I will show you how to do that later on in the video. So without further ado, let us start. Okay, so first up what we need to do is measure up our wrist cuffs. So I have cut out my cardboard tubing, and I'm now trying to find my reel, which is right in front of me. So I've basically done this the same size as my Beerus cuffs. So I've measured them out at about 9 centimeters, which is relatively good. You don't want them too long, you don't want them too short. So 9 centimeters is just about right. And then cut a slit at the back. If you need to make extensions to make them a little bit bigger, just cut out some additional pieces of cardboard, which is what I'm going to do, and glue them on and staple them on, because if you staple them on, it adds a little bit more structure and stability. And then I will Dremel it down to hide the edges, because obviously when you put the foam on, it's going to look bumpy and it's going to be annoying. So anyway, then we will need our foam. So with the foam, I've already cut out the templates just to save some time. So I've cut this from an A4 piece of craft foam, just standard kids craft foam. Doesn't have to be fancy. It's going to be painted and covered anyway, and it still works relatively well. So I've measured the piece that I'm going to need at 15 centimeters. So obviously 9 centimeters, and then it'll allow you allowance of about 2.5 centimeters each way. So basically when you cut it, you will add some slots, and then as you gradually glue it around the cardboard tubing, it will fold over a lot more easier. If you try and do it all in one go and glue it all on and do it without cutting the slits, it's just going to go messy. You'll get glue all over your hands, and it's just going to be a bigger pain in the ass. So let us get on to that step next. Okay, so next up, as long as you've got your foam cut out in your circle in your 15 centimeter squares, like I said, you need to cut slits. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 slits, and they are about 3.5 centimeters, so a little bit longer, and 2.5 centimeters down. So basically, as you go around the card, like I mentioned earlier, it's just easier to do it in segments, and then with the clips, you can hold it down And yeah, anyway, don't worry about if there's any like little bumpy bits in between, as they're going to be hidden when we put on the foam hair curlers for the edging. So basically what we're going to do now is glue it to the card. So you will need the Mod Podge. So you just put a layer of glue along here, not too much, not too little, and then do these little bits step by step as you're gluing around, because if you apply it all at once here, the glue's going to dry and then you've got to keep reapplying it and it's just going to get messy. So let us crack on. Okay, so after you've glued all of the little flaps down around the card, it should look something like this. I used some blue foam, but don't worry too much about the colour, as we're going to paint it with primer anyway, so it will hide any original colour. A good thing to do as well is to put any glue sort of in the flaps on the ends, so they're not, coming off. And just bend the card if you need to make it a little bit rounder. So next up, what we're going to do is add the detailing to the wristband. Sorry, I can't quite get my words out. So basically what you will need next is you will need some of these. These are just some basic hair curlers. Like I mentioned in my last video, or little clip I should say, I got these in Primark for £1, or you can just get them in any sort of beauty shop. A lot of them sell foam ones, but well, more like the spongy ones, but I prefer the foam, as obviously they're easier to paint, and once you Mod Podge them, they stay on relatively well. So all you need to do is, when you get them in the pack, they'll have these white tipped ends, and obviously it'll have the metal inside which you use to bend. So all you have to do is just snap off these, and you can cut them off quite easy with a pair of pliers or scissors, and then just pull out the metal part, and then all you need to do is cut them in half, and there you have your edging. So all I'm going to do is use some contact adhesive next and glue them to the outside. So you just glue them to the very edge, and as you can see, it already gives a very nice 3D effect and makes the armour look a lot better. So like I said, if you had the clips on, don't worry too much, because obviously where they've been hiding, where the clip marks are, they will be hidden by this. So let's start some gluing. Okay, so we have glued on our tubing or foam strip. So basically this is what it should look like. So if you need to tidy up, use a Dremel. Basically what I'll do is if these parts, the foam flaps, if they stick out a little bit too much, just add some Mod Podge, glue them down, and then let it dry, and then go over it with a Dremel and just sand the edges down just so they don't catch. Obviously when you spray paint, the paint's going to harden and then you'll have hard edges. So just make sure that you Dremel them down before you prime your paint. Also, what I also do is kind of do a sort of a filler technique. So I use the Mod Podge and I add some almost sort of like filler. Yeah, so it's pretty much filler. So that's what's the best for Mod Podge is to use for. So then it fills in all the gaps and cracks. So if there's like any gaps when you cut your foam strips and they're a little bit uneven, it's just good to fill in the gaps, so then they're not so visible on the paint. So obviously when you spray paint, it's going to leave gaps and it will look messy. So it's best to do this again before you prime. And then the next step is to completely coat this in Mod Podge, just the outside. Don't bother about the inside too much. You can just do the inside of the tops if you want to, just, secondary layer. I actually need to go and get some more, so I'm going to paint this layer, cover it in Mod Podge, and then I can start priming. So again, onto the armbands, you pretty much do exactly the same thing. So at the minute I've just prepped it, so I'm letting it dry at the moment. So I've got all my clips around it just to hold the foam in place so it doesn't come apart, and try and keep it as round as you can, because obviously if the glue hardens and it misshapes, it's going to be a bit tricky. But I found if you heat it up with a hairdryer for a little bit, obviously the glue will start to melt, and the foam will be a little bit more moldable, but just be a bit careful, because obviously you don't want your project completely falling apart. So I'm going to let that dry. So just to show you how I did the armband, so basically this is the next one I need to do. So this is the one that goes on the upper arm, so just up here. So as you can see, where I'm making it for my partner, I'm just making it a little bit bigger. So like I mentioned earlier, the cardboard extensions, I've just made some additional cardboard pieces and I've stapled them on. And just before you want to do your foam, you will need your big stapler and you will need your elastic straps. So just add it in about a centimetre and a half in, I would say, is probably a good place to put it. So just make sure the staples are facing on the inside. Again, they'll get covered with foam, so don't worry too much, and just obviously sort of pin them down with some scissors. So I'm just going to clip them on and make sure they are nice and straight. So clippy clip. If it stays in place. This part is always the most fiddly bit because there's just so much curling around and going on. So I'm just going to staple it. So I usually do 2 straight staples like that, and then I'll do 2 going diagonally across just to give it a little bit more strength. And like so. So I'm going to do both sides for now, just to make sure it's nice and tidy. And then we can get cracking by sticking on the foam in a moment. But I'm just going to staple this one on. This one's a little bit stubborn because it doesn't want to stay in place. There we go. Staple, staple. There we go. So there's our foam. Again, if you want to, you can add ones here just to give a bit more strength. So I'm just going to do that now just so it's not flapping around all over the place. If I can. There we go. So that's a bit better. And with our foam strips, so this is the cut off I had from when we cut off the A4 piece, so that's why I said to keep it. So I basically cut the cardboard, it's about 3 centimeters wide, and the foam you need to leave about 1.5 centimeters excess. You don't have to. If you want to do it a little bit bigger, it's up to you depending on your arm size. It will vary, but like I said, with the previous one, I've also done 4 centimeter gaps. So I'm just going to cut the slits. Again, don't cut all the way down because otherwise it will leave a sort of cut edging and it'll look a bit messy. And then it's a bit of a pain in the ass to sand it down, because otherwise then you'll do too much and then it'll leave more worse of a gap and then you've got to start all over again. So just leave a tiny amount of overlay just to go to just before you cut it. And like I said, do the 4 centimeter gaps, and then I'm going to completely cover it in Mod Podge and then glue it to the cardboard, and then do this and then clip it all around and then let it dry. Then again, what I'm going to do is cover it completely in Mod Podge, and then we can start priming and painting our pieces. Okay, so I've covered all of the pieces in Mod Podge. So I went to the craft shop, got some more luckily. I had to make some additional add-ons because the foam was a little bit too short, because obviously I made these slightly longer. So I've just glued them on, and I've put some Mod Podge in between the seals, or the lines where the gaps are, so it fills it in. So basically when I paint it, it'll look neat and tidy. And don't worry about spray painting the Velcro as much, because it can always come off because you're going to stretch it anyway. So basically I'm going to paint it with some Plasticoat. So I get this in Hobbycraft for about £8 a can. It's really good stuff if you're using foam. It sticks a lot better, and especially if you're bending it as well, it doesn't crack as like what normal paint would do. So I'm using the Plasticoat primer, as well as the Plasticoat Brilliant Metallic. This paint is really good for metallics. I got this from my little Beerus wrist cuffs and stuff which I sprayed with, and I've run out, so I've got another can, so I'm going to coat with that. So I'm going to do 2 coats of this and then 2 coats of the gold, and I'll have to let it dry sort of an hour in between each coat so it dries properly, because if you spray it all in one lot it will bubble, and you need to do even layers as well. So I'm just going to start spraying, and stick around. Okay, so we've done our first layer, so I'm just going to let this dry for about an hour or so. I'm not going to heat it with a hairdryer because it tends to make the paint bubble, so I'm just going to let it sit in here. Please be aware that I am using a well ventilated room. I have a air ventilator right here, which is the noise you can hear in the background. So if you are painting with this paint, don't do it inside without a ventilator, do it outside if you can. Okay, so here's our first coat done. So as you can see, it's quite nice and neat, and there's a few little bubbles, but that's just where the solvent reacted a little bit, but nothing to worry about. It can always look like it's been molded. So it looks quite nice and neat. So I'm just going to let this dry for about an hour, and then we can get onto our gold coat. And again, I'm going to do about 2 coats and get it to dry. With the gold paint, it is slightly thicker, so be very, very patient with it. Don't do it all the way to the bottom, just do it in half, so just half and half, and then come back to it and let it dry. Okay, so now our paint is all dry, your projects are finally done. If you want to, you can add another layer of Mod Podge to this because it will dry clear, and it's probably something I will do, but I will also advise you to do, as it will waterproof it, so it will protect the paint, and also another layer so it's easy to wipe off any dirt or anything that gets on the paint. So guys, I hope this tutorial has been helpful for you, and if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. And check me out in my next video when I will be making the top.